Well, only a few days away to the budget, and I suppose there's lots of ideas floating around Canberra, and one of them has been put up by the Senator of South Australia, Bob Day, and that's the idea of income splitting. I seem to remember this idea from a past life, somewhere in the back of my mind. Did we ever income split in Australia, Bob Day?
Look, I don't know, not in my memory.
Not in your memory.
But if we have, we should, certainly should, and we don't know what's in next week's budget, but I've written to Minister Morrison expressing my concerns and hoping that something will be in there for single income families. The emphasis seems to be all about childcare subsidies, which has replaced the paid parental leave scheme, which didn't get off the ground, and it all seems to be focused on dual income household, and I think someone has to go into bat for single income families.
Well, in your case, though, you're not talking entirely about single income. You're talking about people that would do a bit of part-time work as well, aren't you? Because your example is a primary income earner and a secondary income earner. So, in other words, a family where one person could, for example, be working on a Saturday morning or whatever, and maybe on a Friday night, and the husband's working full-time or the wife's working full-time and vice versa.
Yes, that is, unless they get up to the tax-free threshold, of course, of $18,000. But someone could either not be earning anything or anything from naught up to $18,000, and then they could then split their income. So if the primary income earner was, say, earning $60,000, and the secondary income earner either not earning anything or, say, part-time job getting $10,000 a year, they should then be entitled to the same tax-free thresholds as as a family or a household on two incomes. So two incomes at the moment get two tax-free thresholds and pay a lot less tax than the poor, long-suffering single-income family. And I just think treating them equally is a lot more equitable.
Now, you wrote a letter, I understand, on the 7th of April. Now, we tried to follow that up this morning with the relevant minister, and I think you'd sent the letter to the wrong minister, according to them.
Well, whether we send it to...
They said it was Josh Frydenberg's area, not Scott Morrison's area. But I mean, it's gone into the mix. What's happened to it? Your idea?
Well, I don't know. I'm hoping that they're ready for a nice surprise on budget night, and they're going to adopt some form of income splitting where they do acknowledge that stay-at-home parents are a national treasure, and we've got this current thinking where only work deemed important is work done outside the home, when stay-at-home parents do an immense amount of childcare work, unpaid, and they also do volunteer work, community work. They're not sitting at home, Ian, eating ice cream and watching Ellen all day. Stay-at-home parents work hard in the vital work of supporting our next generation. And a
lot of them are doing caring work as well. Often them are looking after aged relatives as well. So there's not just the childcare work they're doing these days. They're what they call the sandwich generation, where they may have had their first child in their 30s and they've got mum and dad who have problems as well, and they're running from one to the other. So
exactly. This is very similar to what came up when the paid parental, that very, very generous paid parental leave scheme was been promoted for a number of years then, and I was saying that, and Family First has been saying for a number of years now that single income, low income families are getting a raw deal, and it's about time that they,
Okay, well, I don't know whether you caught the tail end of our discussion there before with Simon Birmingham, but he wasn't averse to the idea. He said the one thing that he could see an issue with was extremely high income people who are on the $150,000 or $160,000 a year or whatever, and they would split their income and it would benefit those that were very well off. Now, do you have a cut-off point in your plan for income splitting? I mean, would you only be able to income split up to, say, 120 or something?
Oh, most definitely. Like they've done in Canada, they cap the amount of tax that can be saved by income splitting. So, look, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so what would be the figure that you would be adopting, and is there an equivalent figure in Canada? Because the dollars are roughly the same and the lifestyles are probably roughly the same, although they have incredibly cheap electricity, we heard last week.
Yes, well, look, we'd have to look at that, and that's up for discussion. Let's get the initial concept agreed to first, that all families, particularly low-income families, single-income families, should be treated equally. Once they accept that, then we can start working on a cap. Look, I don't have a problem with that, but at the moment, the single-income family gets a really raw deal.
Okay, now we've been told that this operates in the USA. Is that right? It says the US residents have the. It says US residents have the option to be taxed as individuals or as a family, and they get a deduction for the interest component of their house mortgage.
Yes, they do. You can get tax deductibility for your house mortgage repayment.
But they don't have negative gearing.
They do have a form of negative gearing. I mean, any input where you spend money to earn money, then that's a tax deduction. You don't pay tax on the money you actually spend to earn that money. Now, negative gearing has become a pejorative term. Anything, if money that you borrow in order to build a house or buy a house, you should be able to deduct the amount of interest you pay on that money from the cost of the project. So. Okay. Now, if that then results in a negative income stream, well, so be it. But, look, I don't have a problem with negative gearing, and I think I'm not sure the United States doesn't have it. I can't imagine it would.
Okay, now, also getting quite a few texts on this one. You're getting some support for and against. One says stay-at-home parenting is a luxury for people who can afford it, but you said you would address that by having a cap on the very wealthy who would be taking advantage of it. And then it says, I don't think I'd ever agree with Bob Day, but I certainly agree with him here. I particularly agree with the importance of recognise the work that's being done within the family is immensely valuable to society, says Kathy. And another one saying, what about de facto relationships? I mean, clearly you'd have to prove that you've been living in a relationship for a certain period of time, but that's recognised as a couple, isn't it, in our country?
Well, they talk about one income or two income households.
Right.
So they don't discriminate in what the relationship is. But you're right, that last caller. A recent study did show that the number one indicator of educational success is not the school you went to, but the presence and availability of a stay-at-home parent. And I think the value of stay-at-home parents is greatly underestimated and undervalued in this country. And
we undervalue everything in this country because there was a documentary the other day, I think on the ABC late in the evening, talking to an expert in England who said that they spend vast amounts more on childcare and making sure that childcare, in fact, they don't call it childcare, they call it an early form of education. So, in other words, we've got a problem in both areas, haven't we? The
best form of childcare is a stay-at-home parent.
Well, that's obviously the policy of family first.
Absolutely.
But okay, finally on this though, there is a tax discussion paper. You would like people who support your idea to write to you?
By all means, they can write to me, and I can give them the information about where they can either make a submission or they can write to me, and I can forward it on to the relevant ministers. And that involves, obviously, the Finance Minister, the Treasurer, the Assistant Treasurer, the Social Services Minister, and so on.
Right. It says, of the developed countries, according to one of our listeners, the United States, France and Portugal require earned income splitting in marital tax measurement. So I assume that they have it in France, Portugal, yes. And the United States. You said they've got it in Canada as well, is that right?
Yes, they have, yes.
So, I mean, there's a number of economies where this is a standard practice.
Well, it's recognised, absolutely. It's recognised as equitable that, a single-income family should not be worse off than a dual-income family when it comes to taxation.
All right, you might have to take on the IMF, because apparently the International Monetary Fund has called for those countries to abandon the practice.
Well, that reassures me I'm on the right track.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.
Now, Mike of Ingle Farm says, Bob Day's got my vote. He's the only one with any brains. Now, in a moment, we'll have the news headlines with Matt Coleman.